Welcome to MGAA Conversations, our new podcast channel where we'll be discussing with an exciting number of guests all things related and topical within the ever-growing MGA community. Welcome to the latest episode of MGAA Conversations. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Stuart Reid, current chairman at Partners and PIKL, and he's also a non-exec director of Harbour Underwriting Limited. Very good afternoon, Stuart.
Good afternoon.
Stuart, I'm right in saying you've also got a position with Claims, haven't you? Claims Limited.
I have indeed. Recently appointed.
Oh, congratulations on that. And
Thank you
your
very
day
much.
your day going well?
Well, it's only going to get better, Mike.
That's the right answer. Okay, well, let's get straight into the questions for our listeners. Drawing on your extensive experience across the sector, and I'm aware that a number of our listeners will know you personally, so they'll be very interested in your responses. What currently excites you, and conversely, what are the potential pitfalls which we are in danger as a community of falling into again?
Well, we live in a cyclical market, don't we, Mike? We've been in here long enough to know that things come round. There are new things. You know, there's a lot of talk about AI and how that will change business. But if I get to the sort of roots of what we're up to is MGAs, brokers, insurers, whatever. What I guess on the positive side is what's fantastic are the opportunities out there. You know, there's still innovation in the market. There's new ways of insuring things. There's new opportunities opening up. There's readdressing old opportunities to make it better. The relationship between capacity providers and MGAs, the relationship between MGAs and brokers, which we've spoken about, is ever evolving, and the opportunities are fantastic. And I will come on to the opportunities I think that MGAs have perhaps later, but just at this point, I think I do a column for one of the insurance rags, and I've been quoted as saying that I think MGAs are on the up and up. And I'm not just saying it because I'm on this particular podcast. I fundamentally believe it. I think the opportunities there are very high. It's good to see women in the city doing really well. There's been some great promotions at Marsh Aon, forgive me. Two very, very good promotions there. It's nice to see some of that happening in our industry, which has been viewed sometimes as a little bit old-fashioned. Some of the challenges, well, look, this will come up once or twice, I'm sure, on a conversation. There's been a lot of change on the regulatory side, a huge amount of change on the regulatory side. And I think of recent weeks, there's been further requirement for non-financial misconduct information and further requests for information. And I think there was some hope that perhaps that regulation might quieten down a little for us to get used to consumer duty, the reporting, the finding out what is going on. And again, we may touch on that. So I think that's a little bit of a frustration. Capacity can still be an issue. Some of the businesses that I touch have had issues with capacity. And some of those smaller MGAs, particularly in the tech field, funding is always an issue. And at the moment, funding for the smaller business is tough. Not so much so for the larger businesses, but certainly for the smaller businesses. Is
that lack of confidence, do you think, in terms of being able to generate those funds? Is it a whole host of market conditions, lack of confidence? Because obviously any new MGA startup needs to try and break even as quickly as they can. But it's, what's your sense?
I think it's all of the above, to fudgy answer. I think the economy is such that, look, whilst hopefully not going into a deep recession, we've gone into a slight one, which does sort of get people nervous. Insurance has always proved itself as recessionary proof, cash generative, a great business to be in. But I think we're hit, certainly those smaller businesses are hit with a view from those lending institutions across the economy as a whole. And even though we can try and persuade and cajole them that we're better than many other areas of UK PLC, that message isn't getting across quite yet. As I say, I think it is in the medium, perhaps to large size businesses, but at those small businesses, it's very tough out there. And what that means is a lot of these small businesses and small MGAs, You've got a talented team who's set it up and are driving forward with the new business, but they're just chasing their tail all the money, just raising money from, private individuals or whatever. The beauty of the business I'm involved with, they cover all spectrums, all sizes, and I definitely see that as a major issue for those smaller ones.
So if I could just circle back, over 90% of our MGA membership engage with the broker community. Now, you've got extensive experience in the broker world, going back to Stuart Alexander, obviously your time at Gallagher's and beyond.
Gosh, you got a long memory, mate.
Yeah, I have got a long memory, correct. and you can tell by the colour of my hair, but there you go. So I'd be really, really interested to get your view on, the health of the broker community as you see it now, given sort of your extensive experience, and what do you feel brokers in particular need to have on their sort of 1, 2, 3 list going forward, because your insight would be really important, because obviously our members need to be very close to the barometer of what brokers are thinking, feeling, and what they're likely to do next.
I think you could have no greater barometer than those businesses that are in acquisition mode are busily buying MGAs. That shows a demand, does it not, from the larger business, but across the market as a whole. I take no pleasure in saying that service from insurers is really poor as a general rule. I mean, really poor. To quote one of the lads I saw in one of the businesses I visited recently, if we gave the service to our clients that we get from insurers, we wouldn't have any clients, which I think put it in a box a bit. MGAs are fulfilling a need for brokers that they simply cannot get elsewhere. I'm generalizing here, and there'll be outliers both sides, but we get better service, we get better claim settlements, we get better reaction, we get better interaction from MGAs in many cases than we do from insurers. So the future is very bright, but if you're asking me what brokers need from MGAs, it's what they don't get from insurers, which frankly is service, attention to detail, getting it right first time. And we just simply don't get that from insurers.
And do you see, we've got 60 insurer members, and obviously they are, they're very aware about the need to improve service, and I don't think they wake up in the morning not wanting to provide, an excellent service. Do you feel that maybe they need to pivot into a different strategy, because, the issues around service, they're not just post-COVID, are they? Because even pre-COVID, there was a challenge, and I just wondered, is there a different model they should be looking at, or is it a self-service? Is it a technology piece? Because will they ever be able to get to where they need to meet the broker community's demands?
Well, I don't think it's difficult. You and I are old enough to keep banging on the mantra that it's a people business, but it's a large country and not everybody's in EC3, right? So it's not always easy to have that people stuff. But I guess where one of the biggest frustrations is, and forgive my lack of technological, my technological dictionary is probably a little bit old-fashioned, but going online and having to enter into different systems or different ways of doing it online for each and every MGA or each and every insurer or each and every product causes a huge issue. Everybody wants something in a different way, in a different format, with different demands and needs, with different requirements. And that can get very frustrating. At its most basic, and this will sound old-fashioned, but people want to get hold of someone who can make a decision fast, understand what they're doing, and have the authority to be able to give the information to the broker they want. That's it. And Mike, as well as I do, and people might gnash their teeth by this comment, but brokers out there, and understandably, they want their job made easy. They're busy people out there. You make the job the easier for the broker. Let me tell you, you'll be a damn sight more successful. And sometimes I think that gets forgotten a little bit. These brokers are under a tremendous amount of pressure. We've had a tremendous amount of change. There's a huge amount of a regulatory burden. Clients are are finding it tough to pay the extra premiums. There's lots of competition. There's lots of consolidation. So you've got bigger ones coming in for smaller. So do what you say, do it right first time, be quick, and make the job easier for the broker. That's all it is.
So great advice and a fantastic opportunity for someone to seize that
I think so.
seize that space. Yeah,
I think so. I think so because I think if that doesn't happen, I think that uh, look, people will decide whether they want to sell or not. I'm sure there's a lot of independent MGAs out there who would never think about selling, but this acquisition of MGAs will continue, and it will continue apace. A lot of the broking market, that mid market in the broking market, has been holed out. Most of the medium sized brokers have gone, and the
yeah,
smaller sized brokers aren't quite as interesting as to these big acquirers than they used. Well, they're not because they don't move the needle. And in that MGA area, it can be very interesting for some of these larger brokers to buy those in. So yeah, I think there could be, well, there is there not, a consolidation play in the MGA market, and we'll see how that goes.
yeah, yeah. I suppose the only sort of cursor I put on that is, the level of due diligence required in acquiring MJs in terms of underwriting performance, both going forward, but more importantly, in terms of rear view mirror, is quite forensic. I'm not saying it isn't from a broker, but it's probably slightly more forensic in terms of ensuring there's nothing to come back and bite you in terms of on prior year arrangements.
Yeah, I mean, the skill set of some of these brokers buying MGAs is relatively poor, and they've got to be very careful that they know what they're doing. Buying an
Mm.
MGA is fundamentally different from buying a broker. You've got the Chinese walls, you've got the
Yeah,
separate running of the two businesses. So, yeah, you've got to be really careful. But is the demand there? Is the hunger there? Absolutely.
that's interesting. Okay, you recently wrote a very interesting article on the importance of trade associations. What do you feel we could be doing more of to improve value to our members?
Thank you for that. Yeah, the article was basically saying that they're a very good article. Thank you.
It was never going to be
Uh,
easy.
um, yeah, I mean, the article was based upon the fact that because the market, particularly in broking, but because the market is the very, very big and the relatively small, um, it is for those smaller firms, those smaller MGAs, to look to their trade body to represent them with a regulator, for example, where they don't enjoy a direct relationship, to use the trade bodies that they have to stand up for what's important for them. And obviously, I think you do a great job. I think Graham does a great job at Bieber. But I think the importance of those trade bodies has become even more relevant in these days of FCA regulating by information rather than site visit, or a direct connection. And therefore, I think that's very important. I also think it's important, and I know you're doing great things, taking great strides with this, to help marry the MGAs with their supply. And I think you've got an event where brokers can come in and meet MGAs. Ultimately, that's where most of the business, I guess, comes from, and therefore, who wouldn't applaud that? So, facilitating a closer relationship between MGAs and their suppliers, representing them very much on behalf of the trade bodies, and being strong. I think it's important that the trade bodies are strong in representing a lot of those members who have no direct contact with that regulator. So I think trade bodies are in a powerful position and currently seem to be doing a good job. And long may it be the case.
And just picking up on one of your observations there, do you feel the FCA's stated quite rightly as their view or approach to move to a data-led organisation?
Mm.
Do you think that perhaps the chains have moved too far across that, and the engagement, the personal engagement, the actual discussion around challenges in the business? We've only got to reference back to when fair value was introduced and the sort of how that impacted the whole value chain, not adversely, effectively. Do you think that data led is actually sort of, unfortunately, sort of stopped some of the previous sort of interactions?
Would inevitably, a communication person to person is much better than just a whole load of information coming in. But there has to be a practicality side. The FCA has never had the workforce, never. I don't think it's, well, no, it hasn't. It's never had the workforce to be able to go and visit every broker in the UK. It simply just doesn't have the personnel to do it and hasn't got the funding for that. So I think there was a practicality issue here. And as such, whether we like it or not, that's the only way they're going to be able to do what they need to do. And as such, it's up to us to look to those that do represent us to ensure that the right things are discussed and the strength of feeling amongst those that they represent is shown to the regulator. I think it's extremely important at the moment to ensure that it is equitable, the regulation. I mean, let's be honest, we are a highly regulated industry, rightly or wrongly. If you compare us to any other industry in the UK, we are highly regulated. And does that reflect the risk? Well, that's not for me, I guess, to answer. But it certainly, when you have gone through such a generational change in how we are regulated that we've done over the last couple of years, I think all of us would celebrate being given a little time just to acclimatize ourselves to this new regime, to this new way of regulating us. And that, I hope, is being passed on.
How close do you feel we are to the precipice where the burden of regulation is actually going to stifle innovation, or do you think we're already there?
Well, I think it has a dramatic effect on people who want to start up a new business. I mean, I am actually writing an article at the moment about starting up a broker, and I think it could not be a better time to start a broker at the moment. But I took the opportunity to try and educate myself a little bit and look at the FCA website as to what the requirements are. And while each are absolutely understood, that's a big hurdle to jump over to start. And you layer on top of that, your IT, the cost of your IT, the who do you choose, how does that work? And it'll be the same for MGAs. You lay on top of that bank account. Well, I think FCA obviously want you to have a bank account, but you lay on top of that all the other things that you have to take into account when setting up a business. I wonder whether that heavy weight has effect, does put people off. But is it going to change? No. Does it mean that people who are prepared to go to that extra mile and deal with this will have more of an opportunity because there'll be less starting? Maybe. But the opportunities are still there. Look, there's no point railing against it. I guess it is what it is. But as long as we have a voice, and to be fair, you and I both know I was on stage with the FCA recently and we were questioning about that. The FCA have made an attempt to get out there and see people, and that's to be applauded. I just hope I hope it calms down for a little bit, so we can get used to it. Then again, sometimes we do shoot ourselves in the foot. Gap insurance, property problems with the cladding and the commissions and all that sort of. We all knew that the issues were there, and yet we as an industry didn't do anything about it. So sometimes we are the author of our own discontent, I think, sometimes.
A great segue. So on that theme, the regulator's recent action over multi-occupancy buildings has again shone a light on remuneration and the value chain. What is your best view again to how to address this? And do you see other similar lines coming under the same scrutiny and pressure?
Well, the best way to address it is as we addressed that issue, which was directly with the government. Make no mistake, Mr. Gove was on his toes. He was very concerned about it, and rightly so, I guess, regarding the cladding. And then that led on to this sort of commission level that some of the insurance brokers or MGAs might take out there. hiding behind the thin fig leaf of, well, I may take X, but I give quite a lot of that X to a managing agent or a freeholder is hardly a defence, I feel. And we shot ourselves in the foot there. And I think we were very lucky that things didn't go even further. I think Gap is another one, isn't it? I mean, 80% of the market's been shut down, I think, at the moment. Um, that's pretty heavy. I don't think I've seen that before. It
Yeah.
may have happened, but certainly not in my lifetime, I don't think. And again, there are 20% have been allowed to carry on. So there's some good guys out there. There's some good people who are doing the business, and I'm sure there'll be more than 20% who will eventually be allowed to do so. Um, but if we've got people selling it in the wrong way, ultimately insurers and or MGAs are giving that, providing that service and those products to those people. And if it's not fair, um, and it's not equitable and it doesn't give good outcomes, then you better stop doing it soon. Otherwise, you're going to get yourself in the right old mess.
And premium credit and installments, again in their crosshairs.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's supposition rather than fact from my point of view. I don't know. I don't have any factual evidence to back that up. Um, but yeah, you would guess, would you not, that that area will come under scrutiny. It depends which way you look at it. Is it something that helps people, or is it something that takes advantage of people? I happen to be in the latter camp, but only if the interest rates and the period over which it's paid are fair and equitable. Um, I don't know, but there have been in the past certain businesses that may have charged a little bit more than other businesses, and if they're still doing that now, I would be very concerned.
So, as Matt quite rightly said at that forum you referenced, they won't hesitate to intervene on anything which they feel the market is disjointed or broken, effectively.
Yeah, I mean Matt was very open about that, and I was pleased that he was. It was interesting to hear. He also mentioned, I think, that Section 166s, which for those that don't know, and I do, are where the FCA goes in and basically reviews a certain part of your business that they feel they don't understand or they want to have further information. And I think Matt was saying that in his mind, it's only because he doesn't have the specialty within his camp to do that as a general thing. He has to get a special team on to it to look at it. Um, but let me tell you from personal experience, the Section 166 is not funny. And for those that are getting that, treat it very, very seriously. And those will only be being given out for those outliers that I guess ultimately the FCA feel that the good outcomes for their customer are not being given. So do watch very carefully that area, and be close to your regulator. They say it all the time. As I say, it was quite funny reading how to start a business. I have absolutely no desire to start a new business in insurance. I'm quite happy to watch others and help and cajole along the way. But it was quite funny to read it there, and it's a big point. We wish, we want to enjoy a close relationship with you. Quite how you do that without having a direct contact with the FCA, I'm not sure. But yeah, I've mentioned the regulator too much, but
Okay.
it is very much of the moment, is it not?
Okay. Let me change tack then a little bit, if I may, and just talk a little bit around intermediated personal lines.
Yes.
So, clearly, if you look at the landscape, we've had, Zurich withdraw from broker personal lines. We've had
Yeah.
RSA obviously have withdrawn. We've got a very large acquisition from Market Study with the Atlanta Group, which is progressing from that perspective. And there was a article, I think, in one of the insurance magazines, which highlighted a question mark regarding the future of intermediated personal lines. Will we in 5 years' time only have 10 providers, in that broker market? So, interested in your own observations and how you see that landscape developing.
Yeah. It's been an area that I've sort of eschewed most of my life. Certainly private motor insurance, if when I was at Bluefin and for that matter, Stuart Alexander, if I came across private motor, I'd hand it to someone who understood it. It's a very specific, it has its own specific history and rules and regulations and the way of dealing with it. That said, I'm buoyed. I met a lady called Sarah Chadburn from One Call, I think it is, the other day, and she is absolutely proving that this can be a very profitable business, a very well-run business, something that can work very well. So there are people out there that can make a success out of it. I think households totally different. I find it quite shocking that Allianz drew to a close a large acquisition of high net worth household business. I mean, they didn't even sell it, so I haven't had a chance to perhaps talk about that directly with Allianz. So it's probably a little unfair having a crack at them about it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a shift in the market out there. Look, my own overview of this is that in insurance, the best way to service your clients, make money for yourselves and make money for your suppliers, MGAs and or insurers, is to specialize. And you can specialize in commercial, and you can specialize in household, and you can specialize in motor. And people will say, well, hang on, that's not a specialism. Well, it can become one for you. And I think as long as you bring specialist knowledge to it, where you can support a profitable book of business for your capacity providers, I think the future's bright. I think it's really difficult in those areas. And for that matter, choice may narrow. Whether it gets to 10, who knows? But these companies aren't making these decisions lightly, are they? These are big books of business.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think they're big books of business, but in terms of what scale means to those businesses, they're large, but they're not that large, in terms of being able to deliver sort of consistent returns over the cycle. And I think, that's the challenge, I think, in terms of, is scale going to be, the number one key driver going forward?
It shouldn't be, should it?
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't.
Profitability should.
Yeah, I think more so probably. I think I agree with you in terms of the specialism side in motor and home, and we've got a number of really excellent members who are experts in that place. I suppose coming back to your conversation, if you were going to start a business, you would think very carefully about going into vanilla personal lines in motor and home to try and compete against the aggregators and direct insurers who've got banks and banks of data analysts and pricing people who forensically price us as consumers, to the eighth degree. So that wouldn't be.
I absolutely. Who was it came out of it? Was it Amazon or Google or someone came out of it recently?
Right. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. But if I appreciate it was a rather feeble attempt, but if they can't do it, what the heck, Look, there'll be huge opportunity for someone out there in those markets. And if you're bold enough and intelligent enough and experienced enough and clever enough to make money out of it, go for it. But in vanilla motor, you'll be bucking the trend.
Yeah, you would be. Okay, so finally, you have your crystal ball in front of you. Fast forward 5 years, and we will both still be here, no doubt. How will the broker landscape look? Will MGA still be thriving? Will insurers just be capital providers and have no branches? Controversial, but they are. But this is for you to observe, not me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah, look, insurance will always have a place, and I think the opportunities here, they may be different than when I started all those years ago, but I think the opportunities in insurance are fantastic for young, middle-aged and old, and it's a fantastic industry to be in. For goodness sake, we're cash generative, we're annually renewable generally, and we're recessionary proof. I mean, what's not to like? It's a great business to be in. As to MGAs, look, I really do believe it, and maybe why I'm invited here, but I really do believe that the MGAs will rise and rise. Insurers are finding it increasingly difficult with the base of expense that they have. We've just talked about big books to you and I, but to insurers, tiny, just been thrown away and given away or just run down. And therefore, the opportunities for MGAs, it's all about services, all about good outcomes for the client, as I've said, and having control of over the product that you sell is so important. I'll tell you what, I just thought of this, and probably I shouldn't say it, but to those that know me or have heard of me, I set up a business called Bluefin, which was bought by an insurer because in part they were concerned about the rise of the large broker and the amount of business that they place with those large brokers. I think that strategy ultimately failed. It was thoroughly enjoyable. We enjoyed it, but Bluefin was sold. There were other ones that have subsequently sold. So I think insurers owning brokers is a bust strategy. It's been tried and it doesn't work. What's strange is it's now becoming brokers and MGAs owning the capacity from insurers. So like the flip side of that coin. And I think that works very well. I think it allows insurers to get involved in markets that they don't have the lightness of foot to get involved in themselves. It just gives them the ability to be innovative. It gives them the ability to employ at third-party expertise that would never work for them. It gives its share of the profit, be it underwriting or financial, to those MGAs. And with the escalation of the Uber broker, the large brokers who are getting bigger and bigger, and they will all buy each other one day, but bigger and bigger and bigger, those bigger brokers coming up, they cannot provide the service they want to their clients. And therefore, they're hungry to buy those that will be able to deal with that for them. So I think the future's ever so bright. Obviously, you need to get a new person to run the MGAA to really take advantage. But other than that, I think it's all great.
Okay. Stuart, on that note, I will say thank you very much for your insight. As always, absolutely fantastic to chat with you. And I'm sure our listeners will love to hear this episode as well. So again, thank you very much indeed. All the best.
And thanks to you, Mike. Very enjoyable.
Many thanks for listening. We welcome all feedback, so please get in touch with your suggestions on topics and future guests. Please don't forget to subscribe on your chosen platform so that you don't miss out.